On the day I retired, my daughter sold my house, emptied my accounts, and locked me in a senior facility without asking. My name is Harold Brooks. I'm 66 years old. For over 40 years, I worked as a carpenter in a small town in Montana. I built porches, barns, and homes for half the families in this county. My hands remember every nail and splinter. That morning, I closed my workshop for the last time. I swept up the dust, hung up my belt, and turned off the lights. It wasn't dramatic, just quiet. The kind of quiet that tells you something big just ended. I made a cup of coffee and stepped out onto the porch. The sun was warm. The roses Jean planted were blooming wild like they always did in May. That garden was hers. Still is, in a way. I can't pull a weed without hearing her voice giving me grief about doing it wrong. She's been gone 5 years now. But in moments like that, I still feel her sitting next to me, sipping her tea, telling me which plants need more sun and which ones I've forgotten to water. Some days, I talk to her like she's still around. Maybe she is. I had no big plans for retirement. I just wanted to wake up when I felt like it. Fix the old shed out back. Maybe grow some tomatoes that don't taste like cardboard. Simple things. Then Claire called, Dad. You ready? We're pulling in. Before I could ask what she meant, she hung up. 10 minutes later, her SUV rolled into the gravel driveway. Lindsay was with her. Both of them stepped out, smiling wide. The kind of smile that hides a plan. Happy retirement, Claire shouted as she hugged me. Lindsay added, We've got a surprise for you. I looked at the trunk of the car. My suitcase was sitting there, zipped up tight. Let's go. Claire reached in and pulled out a brochure. Gold lettering, clean white cover, Willow Heights, she said. It's a really nice place. We booked a tour. Lindsay nodded. Spa, activities, full-time care. It's beautiful. I didn't ask for a tour. I said... Claire softened her voice. We know. Dad, but we've been worried. You're all alone out here. You forget things. You've got no one to check in on you. It's time. Time for what? To start fresh, she said. To be safe. To not worry anymore. I looked down at the suitcase. It wasn't just a suggestion. It was already done. I didn't yell. Didn't fight. I just nodded. The ride to Willow Heights was quiet. I watched the pine trees and fences go by. I built some of those fences, repaired others. Every stretch of road held a piece of my life. But none of it seemed to matter now. Willow Heights was everything the brochure promised: shiny floors, polite staff, a water feature that gurgled quietly in the lobby. It looked like a country club for people waiting to die. Mr. Brooks. Welcome, the receptionist said. We've got your room ready. I turned to Claire. Room. We thought it'd be easier this way, she said. You won't have to go back and forth. And the house. Lindsay glanced away. Claire kept smiling. It's on the market. Don't worry, we handled everything. You'll have more than enough for your care. Care. That word stuck. We walked down the hall. I didn't say much. The room was already set up. My clothes were in the closet. A framed photo of Jean sat on the dresser. They didn't ask. They just did it. Claire handed me a folder. Some standard document, she said. Just sign here. It's so we can help manage your expenses and make medical decisions if needed. Power of attorney. That's what it was. Total control. I didn't sign it. Not then. They left me alone that night. The room was clean. Too clean. It smelled like lemon wipes and new linens. Nothing familiar. I took Jean's picture and sat by the window. I guess this is it, I said to her. They moved me like a piece of furniture. In my mind, I saw her sitting on the porch again, laughing at the way I trimmed the hedges, saying I'd never retire because I didn't know how to sit still. She was right. I wasn't made for sitting still. I looked at my hands that built homes, fixed broken chairs, carved rocking horses. These hands still worked. My mind still worked. They think I'm done. Jean, I whispered. But they don't know who they're dealing with. Willow Heights smelled like lemon polish and something faintly floral, too faint to be real. The floors gleamed like they were waxed twice a day. And the air was so still you could almost hear your own thoughts echo back. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a waiting room with wallpaper. The receptionist smiled at me the way you'd smile at someone who doesn't speak the language slow and wide. Mr. Brooks, we're so happy to have you join our community. Community? That word hit wrong. She handed me a welcome packet like I'd just joined a timeshare. You'll find your meal schedule and the activities list in here. Tuesdays are puzzle nights. Fridays, we have music therapy. The staff is available around the clock if you need anything. I nodded but didn't say much. I already knew I wouldn't be joining any puzzle nights. The nurse who walked me down the hallway had that same practiced smile. Every time she looked at me, it felt like she was checking off a mental box. Room 208, she said cheerfully. Corner unit. Nice view of the garden. There were pastel paintings on the walls, calm landscapes. Sailboats, ducks, nothing with people, nothing too emotional, like they'd carefully screened out anything that might stir the soul. We passed a man in a wheelchair, parked near a window. He wasn't looking outside, just staring. I nodded at him. But he didn't blink, didn't move. Mr. Allen just had a medication adjustment, the nurse said too quickly. He'll perk up soon. I didn't ask. Inside my room. Everything was already in place. My shirts were hung up. My shoes were lined against the wall. Jean's photo sat neatly on the dresser like she'd always been part of this plan. The nurse handed me a cup with 2 pills and a tiny bottle of water. Standard vitamins and blood pressure, she said. I didn't ask for anything. I said. She smiled. It's in your file. The door clicked shut behind her. That was day 1. On day 2, I met Bill. He was sitting out in the small courtyard, hunched on a bench in a worn brown jacket despite the warm morning sun. I sat down beside him and nodded. You been here long? I asked. He shrugged. Too long. He was wiry, maybe late 80s. With eyes that had seen more than they ever said out loud. Name's Harold. I offered, Bill. We sat in silence for a while. Birds chirped somewhere above the manicured hedges. A sprinkler hissed quietly in the distance. Then Bill spoke again. Almost under his breath, people vanish here. But no one asks why. I turned my head. What do you mean? He didn't answer, just stood up and shuffled slowly away, as if he hadn't said anything at all. That was the first real chill I'd felt since walking through the doors. Claire returned that afternoon. She was wearing pearls and perfume, like she was headed to a lunch meeting instead of visiting her father in assisted living. Dad, she said brightly. You settling in okay? It's quiet, I said. That's the point. She smiled. She sat down on the edge of the bed and opened her purse. I brought something. Just some forms, routine stuff. She pulled out a thick envelope and slid it toward me. I didn't touch it. Power of attorney, she said. Just makes it easier for us to help manage everything. Bills, insurance, nothing dramatic. I gave her a polite nod. Let me take a look later. Her smile thinned a little, but she kept her tone light. Of course, no rush. We just want what's best for you. After she left, I opened the envelope. It wasn't just power of attorney. It was full financial control, access to my pension, my accounts, authority over medical decisions, everything. I didn't sign a single page. That evening, I started paying closer attention. I noticed a locked cabinet at the end of the hallway. Staff only. Always watched. I noticed how many of the residents wandered aimlessly. One woman kept repeating the same question, "Is it Wednesday?" every 10 minutes. I noticed how the nurses always smiled, always chirped, always steered conversations back to puzzles and bingo. And I noticed how no one, not a single resident, ever mentioned home. On day 3, I found a notebook in the bottom drawer of my dresser. It wasn't mine, but it was empty, and it felt like something I was supposed to use. That night, I sat by the window with Jean's photo in front of me and started writing. Day 3. Something's wrong here. The staff smiles too much. The residents blink too little. I'm not the only one who sees it, and I'm not going to let them drug me into forgetting that. By day 4, I'd stopped pretending I was just adjusting. I was watching. There was a rhythm to Willow Heights, too smooth, too rehearsed. Pills were handed out like candy. But I noticed something odd. Not everyone got the same ones. Same bottles, different labels. Some residents who used to shuffle slowly were now staring at walls. Others, who were alert last week, suddenly forgot their own names. And the staff, always smiling, always loud enough to drown out any questions. Let's keep things cheerful. Mr. Herald time for word puzzles, like they were trained to talk to us like preschoolers. One morning, I saw a woman named Judy Sharp as a tack just days ago get wheeled into a room with a nurse and come out with glassy eyes. When I passed her in the hallway later, she looked at me like she'd never seen me before. That's when I knew. This place wasn't about care. It was about control. I started asking quiet questions at lunch, in the hallway, in the courtyard. Nothing direct, just gentle nudges. How long you been here? You always get the same nurse. You ever notice anything strange with your meds? Most folks either didn't remember, didn't care, or were too scared to talk. But I was listening. And I was writing. That night, I made another journal entry day 4. Some of them know, but fear keeps their mouths shut. Others. They've already been numbed into forgetting. I won't be one of them. I waited until the hallway lights dimmed. Then I pulled out my old flip phone, one they didn't know I kept tucked behind a loose panel in the drawer. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Tom Herrera," a voice answered. "Still charging by the hour." Tom. There was a beat of silence, then a deep laugh. "Harold Brooks, you stubborn mule. About damn time. Still got access to Brooks Legacy LLC. Course I do. You never changed it. What's going on?" Let's just say I need to unretire quietly. Tom had been my lawyer and fishing buddy for over 3 decades. Helped me and Jean set up a small company years back when I started buying up old properties around town. 4 rentals in total. We kept it quiet. Not because we were hiding, but because we didn't want the kids growing up with expectations. Jean used to say, "If they know there's money, they'll stop working for it." Brooks Legacy LLC was never flashy, just stable, paid the bills, gave us options. And more importantly now, it gave me leverage. "Tom," I said, "I need you to check something. My house." Claire said it was sold. I want to know where the funds went. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Give me 24 hours." The next morning, I got his message. Claire moved the funds into a private account, sole access, no mention of you. Also, she tried to initiate a full transfer of the LLC's management rights until she hit a legal wall. He added, "She's got nerve, Harold, and a plan." So did I. I stared at the ceiling that night, hand clenched tight around the phone. Jean's photo watching over me from the nightstand. I remembered the day we bought our first rental tiny duplex off Magnolia Street. Jean was nervous. I was excited. We signed the papers in silence, holding hands under the table. Afterward, she said, "One day, this might be the thing that saves us." She wasn't wrong. They thought they'd stripped me bare. They took my house. They tried to sedate my mind. They shifted my money without consent. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't take, was what Jean and I built under their radar. And I still had one card left to play. The next afternoon, Claire visited again. She brought me a new pair of slippers, some banana bread, and that same manila envelope. "Dad," she said, with her best, calm voice. "I know this place isn't home, but we're just trying to do what's best. If you'd just sign the documents, everything will be easier." I took the envelope, smiled. "Let me sleep on it." Her shoulders relaxed, like she thought she was winning. Inside, I was boiling. I didn't yell, didn't call her out. Not yet. I just waited for her to leave. Then I opened my notebook. Day 5. They didn't just take my home. They tried to take my dignity. But they forgot something. I built houses from dirt. I built a family from nothing. And I still know how to build a plan. I came here thinking maybe this was how it ended. You work your whole life. Then your kids pack your bags and stick you somewhere with matching curtains and soft food. Maybe that's just the way it goes. Maybe that's the price of getting old. But something didn't sit right. It wasn't just the smiles that didn't reach the eyes. It wasn't just the pills or the paperwork. It was the silence, the kind that doesn't come from peace, but from fear. So I started recording. I picked up a little voice recorder online, paid extra to have it delivered to the mail drop outside Willow Heights. Hid it behind a photo frame in my room. The nurses never checked much anyway. They were too busy being cheerful. I didn't know what I'd catch. I just knew I needed proof. 3 days later, I met Ellie. She couldn't have been more than 27. Light brown hair pulled back in a braid, freckles, always moving fast like she was racing her own shadow. Unlike the others, she didn't speak to me like I was 5. She didn't use that fake tone, just talked. "You okay, Mr. Brooks?" she asked one morning while refilling the water pitcher. I looked at her carefully. "Do I look okay to you?" She paused, then smiled faintly. But not the fake kind. Depends which nurse is on duty. That caught my attention over the next few days. We talked more, in bits, in whispers. When no one was watching, I've seen stuff. She said one afternoon while pretending to tidy my bookshelf, stuff I don't understand, meds going missing, residents getting confused fast, like overnight, paperwork, signatures that don't match. "You said anything?" She shook her head. "I need this job. But it doesn't feel right." That's when I told her what I was doing. She blinked, then nodded. "I'm in," she said. From then on, we worked like shadows. She gave me schedules. Which nurse was on duty? When meds were delivered? Which residents suddenly had money reallocated by their families? She was the one who gave me the name. Marissa Chen. Ellie whispered one morning in the garden. "She's a reporter, local, has a reputation for digging deep when no one else will. I could get her to meet you." Quietly. "You trust her?" "I don't trust anyone anymore," Ellie said. but I think she gives a damn. That night, I listened to the first set of recordings. 2 nurses talking outside my door. Didn't know the recorder was rolling. She didn't need that pill. She was already out cold. So why give her anything? Because her daughter asked. Keeps her quiet when she visits. Did you get the check signed? Yeah. Sloppy. But no one checks these things. I sat there, staring at the frame, my heart beating loud in the silence. They weren't just drugging people. They were signing their names. I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand, pulled out Jean's picture. I told you this place felt wrong, I said. And then I remembered something she told me once, years ago, after a family dinner that went sideways. Claire had accused me of being too strict, too old-fashioned. Lindsay just stayed quiet. Jean sat with me on the porch afterward, hand in mine. You are stubborn, she said. But you're fair. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. Not even your own blood. That voice stayed in my head as I picked up a pen and opened the notebook. But this time, I didn't write a journal entry. I wrote a new will, simple, direct, legal enough for now, until I could meet with Tom again. Claire and Lindsay were out. Everything I still controlled my share of Brooks Legacy, LLC. The 2 commercial rentals Tom helped recover. And anything else they hadn't touched would go somewhere else. To people who'd earned it. I paused before signing, looked at Jean's photo again. You were right, I said quietly. This isn't the end. Not yet. I tucked the will in an envelope and slipped it behind the lining of my suitcase. Tomorrow. Ellie would help get it to Tom. And then we'd start the second phase. It started small. The meals were the first thing to change. Where once my tray came hot, now it arrived lukewarm eggs runny, meat gray and dry. The nurses stopped calling me Mr. Brooks, just Harold, then just him, like I was a name on a list, not a man with ears. I didn't complain, I just watched. Then came the meds. One morning, I glanced at the label on the pill cup. It wasn't mine. I think this belongs to someone else. I told the new nurse. She smiled. It's the adjusted dose. Doctor's orders. Funny, no one told me about any adjustments. I didn't take it. That evening, Ellie didn't show up. By morning, she was gone, transferred. That's what they said. No notice, no goodbye, just gone. The halls felt colder after that. So I waited. I smiled. I nodded. I wrote in my notebook when they thought I was dozing off. Day 14. They're turning the screws. No more kindness. Just control. But they've mistaken silence for surrender. Claire and Lindsay showed up 2 days later. Dressed nice, like always. Claire in something that said, I'm successful. Lindsay in something that said, I'm trying. They came with coffee and a manila folder. I knew what was inside before they said a word. Dad. Claire began. Soft and careful. We've been talking to some experts, Lindsay chimed in. We're just worried, that's all. Claire slid the folder across the table. This is a petition for legal guardianship. I raised an eyebrow. Meaning what exactly? Claire gave a quick glance to Lindsay, then leaned in. It just makes things easier. If you ever forget something, if we need to sign papers, we're not trying to control anything. Lindsay looked away. I opened the folder. The legal language was all their requests to declare me mentally unfit, references to paranoid behavior, non-cooperation, refusal of prescribed treatment. I looked up and smiled. Well, I said, which one of you is getting the beach house? Lindsay's jaw dropped. Claire froze. I'm kidding. I added, there is no beach house. They didn't laugh. I closed the folder and pushed it back. You do what you gotta do, I said. So will I. That evening, I went for a walk down the south wing staircase, one of the few areas still open to us without a passcode. I took the steps slow. My knees aren't what they used to be. Halfway down, I felt it. A shift behind me, a rush of air, and someone brushed my elbow, just enough to throw me off balance. I grabbed the railing and held tight. When I turned, no one was there. But I knew. They were done being subtle. I sat in the courtyard that night under the porch light, thinking about John. She always said if you shine a light long enough, the rats will scatter. So I pulled out my phone. I uploaded the last batch of recordings, the forged signatures, the switched medications, the whispered threats to a private folder. Then I sent the link to Marissa, with one line attached. Time to turn the lights on. The story hit the local paper on a Tuesday morning. Front page. Above the fold, big, bold letters. Behind the smiles, abuse and exploitation. Inside Willow Heights, byline. Marissa Chen. She didn't hold back. She named names, nurses, administrators, doctors. She quoted transcripts from the recordings. She detailed how residents had been sedated without consent, how signatures were forged, how families were nudged into signing over properties under the guise of care. She even mentioned me by name. Harold B., 66, former carpenter, withheld medication, subjected to legal guardianship proceedings by his own daughters while confined under suspicious conditions. That same afternoon, the state investigators showed up, big black SUVs, badges around necks, notepads and questions, and a very different kind of smile. By nightfall, the facility was on lockdown. I was sitting in the courtyard, Jean's picture in my pocket, when an officer approached me. "Mr. Brooks," I looked up. "You're coming with us." "Sir, for your safety." I didn't argue. They walked me out through the front door of Willow Heights, the same door I'd walked in through weeks ago. A man betrayed and boxed up like a piece of old furniture. Now, I walked out with my back straight, not free exactly, but no longer alone. The police took me to a hotel across town, under protection while the investigation unfolded. It didn't take long. By Thursday, the local news ran the story on the evening broadcast. Video clips of Willow Heights, Marissa giving interviews, footage of Claire and Lindsay hurrying out of the courthouse, faces hidden behind sunglasses. By Friday, they came looking for me. They found me sitting in the hotel's little breakfast nook, stirring a cup of black coffee. "Dad?" Claire started, breathless. "Why would you do this?" Lindsay looked pale, eyes rimmed with red. "You went to the media," she asked. "You ruined everything." I raised an eyebrow. "I ruined everything," Claire opened her mouth. But her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and blanched. Then Lindsay's buzzed, too. They stared at their phones in unison. "What's this?" Claire asked, holding it up. "Eviction." I took another sip of coffee. "It's a formal notice," I said. "From the property management group that handles the building where you practice law. Effective in 30 days. Lindsay's hand shook. "I just got the same thing. My apartment." "You mean the condo complex?" I said. "Yeah, that one too." Claire's voice rose. "What the hell is going on?" I leaned back in my chair. "You know that little LLC Jean and I started, the one you never asked about Brooks' legacy?" They didn't answer. I smiled. "Tom Herrera still manages it for me. Been doing it for years. Quietly, smartly, legally." "You're evicting us," Claire said, stunned. I shrugged. "You stole my home." "I'm just returning the favor." They stood there, shocked. speechless. I could have said more, could have listed the lies. The betrayal, the cold meals and warm signatures. I could have pulled out my notebook and read them every entry I wrote while locked behind those flowery walls, but I didn't. I just looked at them the way a man looks at a crooked frame he built himself, one that sagged over time, one that maybe he measured wrong from the start. You wanted control. I said, now you get to feel what it's like to lose it. And I left them standing there in that quiet little lobby, blinking under fluorescent lights, phones still buzzing with consequences. They came to see me 2 weeks after the eviction notices landed. Not at the hotel this time, not with coffee or folders or fake smiles. They came to Tom's office, where I'd been meeting with him to set up the next chapter of my life. Claire looked different. Smaller somehow. Her blazer didn't carry the same power it used to. Lindsay's eyes were puffy. She'd been crying. "Dad," Claire said, voice thin. We messed up. No arguments here," I replied. Lindsay stepped forward. "We weren't thinking clearly. We thought we were protecting you. But we weren't. We were protecting ourselves. They were both standing. I stayed seated. I wanted them to feel the difference. We're sorry," Claire said. "For everything." I let the silence hang in the air a little longer than necessary. Then I leaned forward. "You want forgiveness?" They nodded, then earn it. They looked confused. Tom handed them each a folder. "This," I said, "is the Brooks Foundation." Claire opened hers and read the title, Protecting the Dignity of Elders. "It's a nonprofit," I continued. "We're opening next month. It's going to serve hot meals to seniors, clean up neglected homes, help with transport, teach young folks how to respect people who've lived longer than they've been alive." Lindsay flipped the page. "You want us to work here, volunteer?" I said. "No pay, 6 months minimum." Claire's brow furrowed. "Doing what, serving meals, sweeping porches, listening to old people to people like me?" I said. Lindsay closed the folder. "And if we do this, you'll have a chance to show you've changed. Not to me, to them." Claire swallowed hard. "We'll do it," I nodded once. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. A week later, I returned home. Not the hotel, not the facility, my home. Turns out, Tom had quietly purchased it back under a trust we'd set up years ago. Kept the paperwork hidden until the timing was right. The porch was still there. The steps still creaked the same way. The roses, well, they needed work. But that was the first thing I did. I changed into my old denim shirt, slipped Jean's photo into the pocket, and got to pruning. It was early morning, dew still on the petals. The sun hadn't burned through the mist yet. I dug my hands into the dirt, soft and familiar. Each cut I made felt like breathing again, across the street. Mrs. Langley waved from her window, "Welcome back, Harold." I waved back, "Good to be home, by noon." I was sitting on the porch, tea in hand, watching the roses sway in the breeze. That's when it hit me. Not all old men are helpless. Some just wait for the right moment, wait for the lesson to land, wait for the next thing worth doing. I looked down at Jean's picture, her smile forever frozen in a time when the kids still came over on Sundays. "You were right," I whispered. "They needed to be knocked down a peg. But maybe they'll find something worth building now." I looked straight ahead, toward the garden and the street beyond, and said forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means giving them a chance to do better.